Richard Gere was known as Hollywood's silver-haired heartbreaker, the man who turned Pretty Woman into a modern fairy tale and redefined on-screen desire. He carried charm, grace, and perfect restraint in every frame. But at 76, that image shattered. Gere revealed a truth he'd hidden for decades: the 5 actresses he secretly loved. They were American angels, the kind of untouchable beauty no one dared approach except him. And when you hear who they are, you won't believe it. Julia Roberts, the one who made him lose control, she comes first on Richard Gere's list, not because she's the most famous, but because she's the only woman who ever made him forget he was acting. Their chemistry in Pretty Woman wasn't created by a director or a script. It was created by her. Julia Roberts had this effortless way of slipping under his guard, and Gere admitted more than once that being around her felt dangerous in a way that acting wasn't supposed to be. The moment that sealed it for him happened during a quiet rehearsal, long before cameras rolled. They were sitting at a small restaurant table, blocking a scene, discussing lines, when Julia casually reached under the table and traced her fingertip across Gere's palm. Slow, soft, intentional. It was her method, a way to build emotional tension, but it hit Gere like a physical shock. He said later, she did this tiny thing with her fingers, and suddenly it wasn't a scene anymore. It was us. That moment made him realize how easily Julia could pull him out of character and into something far more real. What made it worse or better was how natural she was about it. She'd laugh, lean close, touch his arm without thinking, look him straight in the eyes, and hold the gaze long enough to make him forget what he was supposed to say next. Crew members whispered about their connection. One cameraman admitted he stopped filming at one point because he felt like he was intruding. Richard admired her innocence and boldness, the way she used emotion instead of technique. She wasn't intimidating like Sharon Stone, or quietly destructive like Diane Lane. She was warm, open, and disarmingly genuine. And that, Richard said, made her the most dangerous of them all. Even today, he admits that if Julia had ever asked him to disappear for a weekend, he wouldn't have questioned it. He would have gone. Sharon Stone, the woman who turned danger into desire. Richard Gere still remembers the exact second Sharon Stone walked into his life, because his whole body reacted before he even understood why. No introductions, no polite Hollywood small talk. Sharon simply crossed a crowded room toward him, reached up, and with one slow, deliberate gesture, brushed a piece of imaginary lint from his shoulder. Then she smiled, but like she was choosing him. That was the moment he knew he was in trouble. Gere later said, Sharon didn't flirt the way normal people flirt, she hunted. And he meant it as the highest compliment. But what made his fascination deepen wasn't just the heat between them. It was the way Sharon worked. On set, she shifted from playful to terrifyingly focused in a heartbeat. She'd joke with the crew, then step into a scene and deliver a performance so sharp it felt like stepping into combat. Richard once explained she could improvise a line that cut right to the soul of the scene. I had to stay alert around her. Blink once, and she'd steal the moment. He admired that enormously. Sharon didn't wait for directions. She created direction. She wasn't afraid to disagree with a director, step closer to Gere than the script required, or change the pace of a scene if she felt truth was buried somewhere deeper. And Gere loved that fearlessness. There was a moment during a rehearsal when Sharon grabbed Gere's wrist mid-sentence and whispered, "Don't act, react." It wasn't in the script. It wasn't even part of the scene. But it jolted him awake. That line taught him more about presence than any acting coach ever had. She was a shock to his system, professionally and personally, and that combination made her unforgettable. Diane Lane, the quiet flame. He nearly crossed the line. For what happens when two actors like Richard Gere and Diane Lane share a scene so intimate that even the director wonders if it's still acting? That question has followed them for years, and Gere has never denied why. Diane didn't ignite desire the way Sharon Stone did. She didn't push or challenge. Instead, she pulled Richard into her space with a softness that felt more dangerous than heat. Diane had a way of listening that made every word he said land deeper than intended. Gere admitted she could shift the entire emotional temperature of a scene with one breath. The moment that changed everything came during filming of Unfaithful. In a rehearsal, Diane was supposed to deliver a simple line of guilt. Instead, she slowed down, took a half step closer, placed her forehead lightly against his, and whispered, "Don't answer yet. Let it hurt first." Richard froze. No actress had ever used silence on him like that. This was Diane's signature. She worked from wounds, not from technique. He later said, "Diane makes you act with your truth, not your talent." to a veteran like Gere that was intoxicating and frightening. Next, she'd hold eye contact a second too long, breathe in sync with her partner, or adjust her voice to match his emotional state. These tiny surgical choices made Richard feel understood in a way he never expected on a movie set. There was one take where Diane's voice cracked unexpectedly. A real crack, not scripted. Instead of cutting, Gere reached for her hand. Diane let the vulnerability stay, and for a few seconds, they weren't acting. They simply existed together. That's the exact kind of connection Richard Gere spends a lifetime chasing. And that's why Diane Lane holds a place in his mind that even he struggles to explain. Michelle Pfeiffer, the woman who disarmed him without a single touch. Richard Gere never expected Michelle Pfeiffer to affect him the way she did. Her power came from something far more unnerving. She didn't need to touch him to make him feel stripped bare, and that alone put her fourth on his list, because the desire she created came from mystery. The moment he fell into that fascination happened in a casting meeting in the latest. Michelle walked in, sat across from Gere, folded her hands, and simply looked at him with a kind of razor-focused attention that made him forget why he was even in the room. 10 full seconds passed. No smile, no small talk, just eyes that seemed to read every unspoken thought he had. Gere later confessed, "Michelle didn't have to say a word. I felt like she had already figured me out. No other actress had ever done that to him. Her working style was even more dangerous for him." Michelle was precise, frighteningly precise. She didn't rehearse to memorize. She rehearsed to edit herself, trimming away anything false until only truth remained. When she stepped into a scene, she cut straight through you calmly, elegantly, almost surgically. There was a moment during a test scene where Gere tried improvising an emotional beat. Michelle didn't respond with a planned reaction. She inhaled sharply, let a real tremble enter her voice, and whispered, "Don't lie to me. Not here." It wasn't in the script, and it hit Richard harder than any intimate gesture ever had. He loved that discipline. The way her restraint made every small shift matter. The way her stillness pulled him in instead of pushing. Gere once said privately, "With Michelle, you don't chase her body, you chase her depth," and that made her impossible to forget. Sophia Loren, the untouchable dream, he never outgrew. Richard Gere didn't list Sophia Loren because of chemistry or danger or stolen moments the way he did with the others. He listed her because she was the only woman who made him feel something he hadn't felt since he was a boy. Awe. The moment that sealed his fixation happened long before they ever shared a frame or exchanged a professional word. It was at a European awards ceremony in the late 80s. Sophia walked toward him, carrying that effortless Italian grace, placed her palm on his cheek, softly, motherly, devastatingly intimate, and said, "You look too serious for a man with eyes like that." Richard couldn't speak. He laughed about it years later, but at that moment, he was frozen. A 40-something movie star suddenly reduced to a nervous teenager under the gaze of a legend. But what made his admiration irreversible wasn't that touch. It was the way Sophia worked. She didn't force a scene, didn't overplay. Instead, she commanded stillness, asking everyone, including Gere, to meet her level of truth. During a master class they both attended, Sophia told the younger actors, "If you don't live with your heart open, the camera will know." Richard never forgot it. He often said that line changed how he approached vulnerability on screen. Sophia's presence was something he described as gravity. She made him want to rise higher, hold himself straighter, and bring more honesty to his work. Gere once admitted privately, "I never desired Sophia the way I desired others. I desired to be worthy of her. And that more than heat or chemistry is why she remains the dream he never escaped." So now that Richard Gere has finally revealed the 5 actresses he loved most, which name shocked you the most? And do you think any of these feelings were truly mutual? Tell us in the comments. We really want to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into Hollywood's biggest secrets.